My name is Jake, welcome to the channel, and today's video we're going to do a review my pie video where I review subscriber portfolios. I really enjoy this series. It's been something I've been doing for over 5 years, and it's been such a great experience reading different people's ideas, experiences, and ways that they're looking at dividend investing, because there's really no one size fits all. And the reason why I like this series so much is because I get to be a human being. I'm not a robot. I get to actually have a conversation, and that's what I see this as. I see it as a conversation. These videos are not scripted. It's just me pulling up the mic and having a conversation with you. So in today's Review My Pie, we're going to keep the same format. We're going to take a look at a question here, and we're going to take a look at 3 portfolios. They're all from the United States. The first is from a 37-year-old, the second a 43-year-old, and then the third a 41-year-old. And as always, everybody, the timestamps will be in the description below. And as always, please don't take what I'm saying as financial advice. This is just merely for your entertainment, and the portfolio links will be pinned in the description below, so you can take a look at those. So whether you're in your 20s, your 50s, or in your 40s, I think you're going to be able to take away something from this video. I talk a lot about how to invest based off of your investment time horizon, and so a lot of that will be covered in every single one of the portfolios from a different perspective, depending on where the person's at and what information that they provide. Because I try to make it more so, balanced, where I'm addressing new investors, experienced investors, everything in between. But I will say, if you are a new investor, and you see the stock market is in a raging bull market, I just want you to understand that this is maybe normal, maybe not normal. The market always throws you surprises. I mean, next year the market could be down 30%. You just don't know. But if you are a new investor, just understand that the market works in cycles. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. And with there being ups and downs in the market, it could look a little like this.
Let me hear us on these bridges, but it's worth a try.
Stay safe. It ain't that bad, okay? Relax. I was only joking.
Oh man, I love it. I was just joking. Oh man. All right. Okay, pull together. All right. And so the question is, hey there, I'm at my 40s and I'd like to have a second opinion on my thoughts. In case of an immigration, would you see the risk? Would you see risks allocating in JEPQ at least 90% of the portfolio for at least 1 to 4 years as a significant risk? Would it be a logical thing to do in case of the whole family have to rely on this income for at least the first year at the new place? If you're moving somewhere and you know you need the money, would it make sense to invest 90% into JEPQ for the first couple of years? And JEPQ is a cover call ETF. So indeed, there would be an emergency fund for 1 year's rent, but the portfolio has to cover in general all the family expenses for the first time until I get a new job. Not taking it as advice, just as a second opinion. The rest of the portfolio, 10% will be allocated to SEHD, DGRW, and VGT. Thanks for your thoughts and insights. So this is a really good question. So if, I immigrated, or if it doesn't have to be immigrant, like you could move to another country, you can move to another city, you can move out of your parents' house, right? You can move out of your mom's basement, right? Like there's not going to be any more meatloaf, but you are going to have a lot of new expenses, and there's going to be, different things that are going to be coming your way. So when I moved out of my parents' house, when I moved to Germany, and I went off to school, I basically knew what my expenses were going to be. But if you're in your 40s, I think, the important thing that you want to have here is, the important thing that you want to remember here is, that the expenses are going to come up, so you really don't want to take on a lot of risk. So in my opinion, I probably wouldn't put so much into JEPQ unless the income fully covers all of your expenses, because what if you have to tap into the principal, right? And what if we run into a recession? You just don't know. And so if you know that you're going to need the money no matter what, because you have a life event coming up, then I much prefer to have that money in cash. And especially where, we're talking about 1 to 4 years, where you could have a high yield savings account or a money market account where you're getting 4.5% income. Now, this is obviously going to change as interest rates change, but I much prefer having this money in liquid cash or in a savings account that's yielding 4 or 5% than investing it, because you know you need the money. And so what I would probably recommend is to anyone, regardless of the situation, if you're moving out of your house across state, new city, new country, I would probably have the money sitting in cash that you conservatively know that you're going to need. After that, then you would go to invest into a portfolio based off of your goals and needs. And so that's how I would look at that. But I mean, I don't see anything necessarily really wrong with going so heavy into JebQ with that strategy. It's just, I'm very, very risk averse when it comes to knowing, when I know that I'm going to need the money, I'd rather just sleep well at night and just have the money in cash. And so that's just my personal opinion. And you asked for my thoughts. And so my thoughts are, I would have a bigger cash buffer because it may take you longer to get a job and you just don't know the uncertainties with the market. That's just my personal opinion. Now, could you have some of it in JebQ or JEPI or something like that? Yeah, absolutely. But I probably would not put so much into JebQ. I probably would have it in cash and I would use the cash as I needed it. And so that's how I would view that. The question here is, tapping into your portfolio to, have a life event, right? To go and move somewhere or do something different. I would not have this part of your portfolio. Like I would not even have this as a consideration for your portfolio. So I would have these events entirely separate. I would have the money set aside for the life event, moving, and then I would view it entirely different than your portfolio. Okay. And so that's how I would do it. I'd have the money in cash. I wouldn't really look at these and try to mesh them and combine them together because I would see them separately. Investing, and so therefore I wouldn't have 90% into JebQ. I would have my portfolio in the Simple Path to Wealth, SAHD, DGRO, and then I'd have satellite positions. And then I would view this life event entirely different, and I would have a cash buffer or something like that. It's no different than if you were to go on a vacation, you were to buy a car, any other life expense, I would view them separately than your portfolio and I would not mix them together. So that's just my opinion. I think it's a really good question. And I think it really just boils down to not how you think about this and not meshing them and mixing them together. I would keep them entirely separate. So yeah, I think that's it. That's all I would add with that. And thank you so much for the question. All right, let's take a look at the first portfolio. Hi, Jake. First, I'd like to say I'm a big fan of your channel. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you saying that. Back in 2020, I wanted to get my feet wet in getting into stocks. At the time, I had just finished up my doctorate program and only had a little bit of cash in order to start playing in the market. My research approach was pretty simple. I basically compiled the most mentioned stocks that were both growth and dividend focused. Once I had compiled this list of most mentioned stocks from forums, YouTube, and articles, I invested into them on M1. Since then, I haven't really invested into my portfolio. Being a new dentist, I focused on work and saving cash. I'm now in the place where I would like to start throwing money into the market. However, I am looking for some advice on my holdings. I have 62 holdings, which I would like to trim down as far as any redundancy. My goal is to have growth stocks and stocks that will compound via dividends. I'm 37 years old and my monthly pre-tax income is $40,000 a month. That is not a typo. $40,000 a month as a dentist. Okay, so you're 37 years old. Wow, you are winning at life. So you don't mention here how much student loan debt you have, but you have a huge earning, but 40 grand. Okay, cool. So I guess the first thing here is 62 stocks, I think is way too much. And let's take a look at your portfolio. So what do you got in here? You got, so it looks like you have a whole bunch of individual stocks. I don't know if you have ETFs in here, but let's take a look at it. So first off, right off the bat, the first thing that I'm going to say is 62 is way too much. And you're a dentist now. Okay, you have a lot, you're 37 years old, you're probably gonna start looking to get married, have kids, like you're at that phase in life where everything kind of hits you all at once. You're probably gonna buy a house, or consider one. You're probably gonna look to buy a new car, or you're gonna have that lifestyle creep. You have a lot of things coming your way. And so it really comes down to if you can make a few decisions on a little bit more conservative, make some decisions a little bit more conservatively, you can live life like no one else in your early, late 40s, maybe early 50s, depending on what your goals are, because you have the potential to live an entirely different life. But most dentists, most doctors that I've ever, known growing up or seen, a lot of them are actually broke. They're broke because they have what's called lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation, whatever you want to call it, right? Where they get that new house, they get that new car, they get that new boat, they go to the Bahamas every year. They go and they put their kids in private schools and get them, Gucci bags. Like, they just spend way too much money. But it doesn't sound like you're that kind of person. But the reason why I'm saying this all is you're in that phase in life where you're now done with college, you're now working, a lot of things are going to be coming your way. And because of that, what I would recommend to you is make your investing so simple that it almost seems wrong that it's so simple. And the way that you can do that is structuring your portfolio like what I like to talk about is the core and satellite, where you have a core portfolio of ETFs, index funds, that are broad-based, that are low fees, and you balance out the growth or the income depending on your goals with the satellite positions. And I've talked about this a lot on my channel. And so I would recommend this strategy for everyone, absolutely everyone, okay? And so I always get asked, well, how much should I put in ETFs? How much should I put in individual stocks? My opinion is that you can have too much in an individual stock. I don't like having more than 5% in an individual stock, but I often get asked, well, how much can you put into an ETF? In my opinion, you can't have too much allocated to a broad-based, low-fee index fund that meets your goals. So if you wanted to have 40 or 50% into SEHD, absolutely fine, in my opinion. So with that understanding, let's take a look at your portfolio here. Because if you've been following my channel, especially since 2020, my strategy has changed quite a bit since 2020. When I first created my YouTube channel in 2019, I hate to admit this because, well, I don't hate to admit it because it's the truth. I was all over the place. Right? I flip-flopped left and right because I didn't really know what my goals were. Once I figured out my goals, it made things so much easier. Okay. And so that's a little bit of a rant, but it helps you to understand where I'm coming from. Okay. So I'm not going to look at every single stock and tell you, yes, keep this one, sell this one, because I don't want to do that. Right. You do have an ETF in here, the ARK ETF. I think, and you do have some other ETFs in here. You got QQQ. I think what you could do, and you do have some growth ETFs in here. What I think you could do is you could probably cut the amount of holdings in a third. You could probably cut a third of these, 2/3 of them, excuse me. You could have 1/3, you could cut 2/3. So you have like 60 holdings. You could probably have 20 and be more than fine. Okay. And so that's actually what I would recommend you do is put together a strategy. Like I would review them and say, okay, do you really need Apple? Do you really need Amazon? Do you really need Altria Group? Do you really need Bank of America? Do you really need Caterpillar? These are all really great companies, right? Duke, great utility. Exxon, great oil, energy stock, right? Really great companies. The question is do you need them? And it really comes down to when you plan on living off of your portfolio. So all of these questions, if I were, you and I could sit down and we could talk about this for hours and I could walk you through this and help you understand it. But for this short video, and for you and for anyone in your situation, if you're in a similar situation, the best thing that I can recommend is try to simplify this. Don't overcomplicate it. Wall Street would like you to believe that this is complicated, that investing is intimidating and only they can do it. That's not true. You can do it yourself, but you have to keep it simple. And so what I would recommend is follow the core and satellite, where you have between 60 and 80% in your core ETFs. And then I would have satellite positions that you surround your core around. And so that's my recommendation here. You're kind of all over the place. You got DGRO and you got VIG. You don't need both of them. There is a ton of overlap in this portfolio. So that's what I would recommend. I probably would cut this from 60 holdings down to like 20 holdings, and I would overweight more. I would allocate more into the ETFs, and I would kind of go back to the drawing board and pretty much start over. And then once you've done that, the next thing that you want to do is you want to look at the portfolio weighted average dividend yield. And then what you want to look at is the portfolio weighted average dividend growth, because that's what you're solving for. The reason why we invest is so that we can, if you're a dividend investor, so you can live off the income and that your income is growing. But you have to understand, well, how much income do I need? And that is based off of your expenses, kind of tying into the lifestyle creep, kind of bouncing all over the place here a little bit. I'm trying to regurgitate all this information in such a short period of time. It's just important that you first start with your why. Why are you investing? What is your goal? And then you work backwards from there. Okay. And the main thing that you want to focus on is, how is your portfolio, the weighted portfolio of all of your holdings? What is that dividend yield? And how quickly is the weighted average dividend growth of your portfolio? And then it just becomes a question of math and time. How long does it take you? How much do you need to invest based off of your holdings to reach your goals? And that's all it is. So I hope that helps. It's a lot of information in there, I know, and I hope that makes sense, and I hope that it brings you a little bit further. But as it stands right now, I do not like this strategy. I think, you put a lot of work into this, but I can only imagine over the years you will change this up on a regular basis, and it will frustrate the heck out of you. And I can attest to that, speaking from experience. So thank you so much for sending over your portfolio. All right, the next portfolio is from Jose. He writes, "Hello, Jake. My name is Jose. Welcome to my email." Oh, man. Hi, Jose. I have been a longtime fan of your channel. I was exposed to it at a time when I was at a turning point in my life and needed to decide on a strategy to focus on my wealth building. I am 43 years old, and yes, I'm late to the party and have a wife and son, serve in the armed forces, and by utilizing my benefits, I was able to get just over $450,000 in federal student loans forgiven. I called you up last year via your one-on-one calls while I was overseas. It was about 3 a.m. my time. I actually remember that conversation, Jose. I still remember our call. That's so cool, man. It's great to hear from you again. And although it was only supposed to be 30 minutes, you graciously gave me an hour and a half of your time and answered all of my questions. Yeah, Jose, I recall that conversation very well. I even remember talking to you about even considering joining the the reserve so that I could get health care. But I think it was, no, I'm not going to go into every detail, but no, it was great chatting with you. Thanks for reaching out again. So in my desire to know what to do with my newfound wealth, namely the fact that I now had about $3,000 extra a month I don't need to give anybody else, I knew investing would be the best option. I just don't know where to start. Real estate, the 4% rule, Bitcoin. As I'm doing my research, I came across your channel and it just clicked. The simplicity, the optimism, and the focus on Swan, sleep well at night. This was exactly the information I was lacking. I'm not pursuing FIRE, financial independence, retire early, but I'm investing like I am. I dollar cost average into 4 portfolios in M1 Finance. So let's take, and it's not just about FIRE, retiring early, right? Like, I know a bunch of people. There's a guy up in Coeur d'Alene, really like it, friend of mine. He has golden handcuffs, like we say, because he's working towards a pension. Not everyone has the same goals of retiring early. I wanted to retire early as soon as possible because I was working in a stressful job that was going to kill me because it was so stressful. So it really just depends. There's different paths for everyone. And that's what's so beautiful about this is there's not a one size fits all. And a lot of times online, people like to make you feel bad for your choices because it's different than their own, but everyone's in a different situation. And it's just how it is. So the first portfolio is the growth one. You're putting in $1,350 a month. The intent is for big purchases. Do not currently own a home and don't plan to for at least 10 years. Currently have about 8,000. So so there's a lot of information. I'm going to try to remember everything. So the growth, you have separate portfolios. The first one is to have it, to purchase something bigger in the future, like a house, a car, a vacation, all of that good stuff. The second one is your dividend portfolio. You're putting $1,500 monthly, your dollar cost averaging. Could you help me figure out a projection of when I could reach $70K a year in dividends? I plan to increase my contributions by $500 per month yearly for the next 5 years. I plan to keep the same percentage allocated for at least 15 years. I don't plan to live off the dividend for at least 25 years, currently about 20K. Okay, so what you're referring to is the dividend reinvestment calculator. And since we spoke, Jose, I've actually come out with another video talking about the reinvestment calculator. What I will do at the very end of this video, there's a video that will pop up. I will have that video be the video where I talk about the reinvestment calculator, where I updated it. So, because it would take me quite a while. I don't want to spend the entire video touching on that, because I've already touched on the other video. So I will leave a link to that. It'll pop up at the very end of this video, and it addresses exactly what you're referring to when it comes to projecting the income with using a dividend reinvestment calculator. And in that video, I share the calculator. I share it for free. I don't sell it. It's just free. So I'll let that pop up. Okay. So the third one here, you got your Roth IRA growth maxing out yearly through monthly dollar cost averaging 2 years worth. Okay. And then you have a custodial, $100 a month for now. And any gifts for for a family child so your child is 5. So moving on, this is in addition to my spouse's match contributions on her own Roth and match contributions 5% in the Roth TSP, the 401k federal employees plan. Okay, and you have the S&P 500 there. Okay, so in your wife's Roth IRA, great. I currently have 55k in the TSP and plan to transfer it to my Roth M1 Roth when transitioning out of the service. I encourage all of your listeners and subscribers to learn from the concepts you preach: the core and satellite, time horizon, high yield savings accounts, minimize consumer debt. I got one from Dave. I got that one from Dave. Sorry, Jake. No, 100%. So, but more than anything, do your own research. Just because it works for one person doesn't mean it'll work for another. My situation is very different from yours, Jake, but with your explanations, I was able to adjust them to my own personal financial needs. Thanks for being so genuine and so upfront about your struggles and triumphs. YouTube needs more of that. Looking forward to seeing more of your stuff. Very respectfully, Jose. Jose, thank you so much, man. This is why, like, a big reason why I keep doing YouTube is meeting people like you, having, hearing stories like you and interacting with you, because when I make a YouTube video, I upload it into the cloud and I see a few comments, and I don't know how it impacts other people. I don't know what people think, if they like it or if they don't like it. I see this arbitrary number of likes and all that good stuff, but it doesn't really tell me if I'm making an impact. And that's really why I created the channel to begin with, was to help other people learn mostly from my mistakes, and hopefully that they could, get something out of that. So I wish you could see the smile on my face when I read this. And I just thank you so much, man. It really means a lot reading this. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. All right, so let's take a look at the first one. This is your growth portfolio. And I still remember this conversation that we had that I said, because I think you had everything mixed together. You had your growth and your dividends together in one account. And I remember telling you to separate them, have them in a different portfolio so that you can view them separately. And because they're different goals, right? There's different reasons why you invest. And so I really like that you did that. And so the first one here, you got QQQM. You got a pie here of growth stocks. You got VGT. You have a mid-cap quality ETF. You got VTI, and you got the Bitcoin ETF, and you got a semiconductor ETF. So you got a lot in. Yeah, I like that you have your growth spread out. I like that you went with the M version of the NASDAQ ETF here, because it's a little bit of a lower expense ratio. You don't have a broad-based index fund in terms like, the S&P 500. Like, this is very, very much focused on growth. You got individual growth stocks. You got quite a few of them. How much do you have allocated here? So you got 20, so very, very limited. Yeah, so because the overall slice here is 20%, and because you have so many, you're not going to have a lot of money invested into each one of these, which may be, the reason why you're doing it. It's maybe makes it a little bit less stressful. To each their own. I think this is a little bit too much. I probably would cut back on this, but this is, maybe your fun money, right? This is where your satellite, where you're reaching for the stars and taking on a little bit more risk. I think this is absolutely fine. The reason why I like this is you're limiting your exposure and your risk. Okay. And that's why I like this. No one single stock represents more than 5%. You're insulated, you're protected in a bear market. You're doing this very methodically. I think this is absolutely fine. The only thing that I guess I would consider is if you really wanted to have more of a conservative growth, you may want to consider throwing in the S&P 500 or VTI, total US stock market, because you don't know if we're going to have 10 years of growth, a 10-year, lost decade. You just don't know. And I think, casting a wider net is never a bad idea. But I will say that is pretty nitpicky. All in all, I do like what you're doing and I like how you're spreading it out. I think this is absolutely fine. Now on to your dividend portfolio. The dividend portfolio I like quite a bit more actually. And so you're following the simple path to wealth. You got DGRO and you have SEHD. You have DGRW as well, and you have VIG and you have FDVV. So every single one of these ETFs, you get my stamp of approval. You're following the simple path where you got 80% in the simple path to wealth. Now, the simple path to wealth with dividend investing that I talk about, it was inspired by J.L. Collins, right? The J.L. Collins, kind of pioneered the idea of investing into VTSAX or the total US stock market and then living off of the 4% rule that way, right? What I'm saying here is if you want to be a dividend investor, you want to invest for, your income, dividend investing, and you don't want to sell your shares. For me, the way that I interpret the simple path to wealth with dividend investing is to invest into DGRO, SEHD, invest into those using the core and satellite, and invest in them as much as you can, as long as you can, and hold them forever. That's basically how I view it. So all in all, I really like this. You don't necessarily have to have VIG and DGRO. This is a little nitpicky. There is quite a good amount of fund overlap, but all in all, I would say the overwhelming majority of people following my channel, if you have a long-term time horizon, 10, 20 years, this is the way to start. This is the way to start, and you can sleep well at night, every single night like a baby, whether the market's up 20% or down 20%, you are investing in the simple path to wealth with dividend investing, and it's great. It's beautiful. So this is a great one. I really, anything that I would change would just be nitpicky. I think this is absolutely fine. Now on to your Roth IRA. So your Roth IRA, you got SEHG, VGT, DGRW, and FDVV. Yeah, I like this. I really like SEHG. Whenever I'm recommending growth ETFs, this is the first one that I recommend this, VGT, and the other one I usually recommend 4. So the first one is SEHG. I recommend VGT, and then another growth ETF is VUG, and another one is SPYG. Lots of G's for growth, I guess. But those are the growth ETFs that I generally will recommend if your goal is to rebalance in the future, right? You sell them and then you buy dividend stock in the future. Let me share a light bulb moment with you here. So imagine for a second that you're investing into this for the next 20 years. And let's say that the market is roaring and does what it does. Some years it's up, some years it's down, but over time, this averages 10 to 12% a year, give or take, with some bumps along the way. Then what you do is after those 20 years, you take this growth and then you sell it tax-free in a Roth IRA. And then what do? Then you buy JEPQ, JEPI, SEHD, larger dividend growth ETFs and stocks. Did you just get the light bulb? That's how it works, guys. And that is exactly what I am doing in my Roth IRA. In my Roth IRA, I invest purely for growth. And when I reach retirement age of, when I reach the age of 59 and a half or whatever later, I'm going to sell all of it tax-free. I'm going to buy a ton of JEPQ and SEHD. That's what I'm going to do. But your Roth IRA, I think it's great. I think I wouldn't necessarily change anything of it other than the only thing that I would change probably is maybe I probably would add VTI. I would add the total US stock market in here because 20 years is a long time. You don't know what the market's going to do. I most definitely would add the total U.S. stock market or the S&P 500. I would include that into a growth portfolio like this. So, but that's just my opinion, because in my Roth IRA, I have VGT, I have VTI, I have VXUS, a small amount, and I have VNQ, a small amount. And that's all I have in my Roth. So, but yeah, I like it. I like it. All right. And the last portfolio here, this is your son's custodial account. You have 3 ETFs in here. You got VGT, SCHD, and SCHG, and they're basically equally weighted. I really, 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 really like this. I really like it because of 2 reasons. One, multiple reasons, but the 2 things that stand out to me is because this is a custodial account, it's in your son's name. Your son doesn't have to sell the shares. Like if this is just a regular account in your name, you'd have to sell the shares or have to do something to, you'd have to add your son on there or something like that. The cool thing about this is you have growth because your son's not going to be paying taxes on this, right? With the VGT and the SCHG, just a very minimal amount of taxes. SCHD a little bit. So it is tax efficient. That's the first thing that I like. The second thing that I like a lot is 3 things. There's a lot to like about this. The second thing is the simplicity. The third thing is you have flexibility with the dividend side, where SAHD, your son could hold this for the next 60 years and never sell it. With VGT and SAHG, these are growth. Your son could sell these in 20 years and buy a house, go to college, buy a car, do whatever, right? It adds a little bit of flexibility. Okay, so those are the things that I like the most about it. The only thing that I would recommend, this is once again a little bit of nitpicky. I'm kind of a boglehead at heart, though I'm not really a true boglehead. I like having a little bit of exposure to the overall market because you just don't know what the market's going to do, and so having a little bit into VTI or the S&P 500 would be something that I would recommend considering. So, but with that, I think all of the portfolios. It just puts a huge smile on my face seeing how you have this set up, because you're doing this yourself. You're not paying a financial advisor to do this for you and to manage this for you. This is so simple that your average person can do this, whether you're here in the US or you're deployed abroad working. That's what's so beautiful about this. And I hope that your wife understands this and that she's on board with this and that you're doing this together, and which it sounds like you are. And yeah, man, I'm just so happy for you. But yeah, with that, thank you so much, Jose, for sending over your portfolio. And the last portfolio is here from Jason. He sent it to me on Instagram. He said, "Hi, Jake, here's my portfolio for consideration. My wife and I are both active duty military." I didn't actually plan this. So 2 active military in a row here. So on track to receive a dual pension. I have $100K in my Roth 401k and $16K in SHD in my Roth IRA. And then my main brokerage Dividend account. So the Snowball Analytics link here, I'm assuming, is your regular brokerage or Dividend brokerage account. I asked him if he could send over a little bit more information, and he did. He said, "Sure thing, Jake. I'm 41 years old. I got probably 4 to 5 years until I will retire from the military, and at that point, I will look to start another career after while receiving my pension to accelerate my wealth accumulation. My portfolio will basically be serving as a bridge while I transition from the military and figure out what comes next. Once I land my new job, I'd like my portfolio to cover the payments on a Lamborghini. Ultimately, my wife and I would like to retire on the Mediterranean with a garage full of exotic cars." Now, if that isn't a dream, I don't know what is. That is such a cool dream. Have your dividends pay so that you can drive a Lamborghini on the Mediterranean. Isn't that so cool? I think I want to update my life dreams. I gotta talk to my wife. Maybe not a Lamborghini. Maybe I go with it for a McLaren. I'll go for the McLaren. You keep your Lamborghini. I'm gonna go for the McLaren. Maybe I don't have a garage full of exotic cars. Maybe I have 2 cars. And there's no way. I'm not even going to buy a Porsche. I'm going to drive my little Elantra till it dies. So let's take a look at his portfolio. All right, so let's take a look at his portfolio here. This is in Snowball Analytics. I'm a huge fan of Snowball Analytics. They've been sponsoring the channel for months now. I've been using it for quite a while. I really, really like it. They do have a Black Friday sale going on until December 5th. You can get like 30% off with my link. So if you want to sign up, it is an affiliate link. I do benefit obviously from it, but I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't use it and I didn't actually like it. So, but anyways, let's take a look at it. So let's see here. So your holdings here, you have in here, and it's also the reason, another reason why I really like it is kind of like M1 Finance. So if you're like outside of the US and you can't get M1 Finance, they have their pies within a pie and all that good stuff. So it's kind of cool. It's a cool way to analyze your portfolio. Anyway, so you got the S&P 500 in here, you got VYM, you got a money market fund in here. You have a lot in money markets. Okay. And then you got a consumer discretionary pie, information technology, energy, financials, industrials. Okay. So the weighting here, I like that you have 20% in the S&P 500. You got a good amount in VYM. Where's your SEHD, man? Why don't you have SEHD? SEHD is like the unicorn of all unicorns when it comes to dividend growth ETFs. So I think the number one thing that this portfolio is missing, you can't call this a dividend portfolio if you don't have SEHD. Now, obviously, do whatever you want. But in my opinion, it's one of the best ETFs out there, in my opinion. So, and you don't have any DGRO as well, which is a good. DGRO and SEHD, they complement each other. They go very, very well together. There's no wonder I talk about it so much. But anyways, let's take a look at it. So you got Apple in here, and let's see if I can filter here by the share of the portfolio. So the largest one, you have a lot of money in the money market. Are you timing the market? Are you waiting for the market to go down so you can buy more stocks? Or what are you doing with all this money in the money market? Maybe this is your emergency fund? Maybe that's not a bad place to put your emergency fund in a money market fund where you're getting, like 4.5% or something? And then you got Chevron, Starbucks. Oh, what do you got here? 6%. That's more than 5%. Okay. All right. And then you got Visa, Waste Management. Love to see it. Kind of love to see it. You got Apple, Nike, Home Depot. You got Microsoft, you got VYM, you got Realty Income, and you got Kava. Oh man, I love Kava. I was going to buy their stock, but then it went up way, way too fast. Hopefully if it comes down, I can buy it. I love going there in Austin. I think we have one here in Utah where I'm at now, but we go to Kava in Austin like every couple of weeks. I love it. I love their pitas. And then the hummus, oh, so good. Okay, what else do you got in here? So I'm trying to think here. So I guess, when it comes to this, your goal is in the next 10 or so years, you're still going to be working. You want this income to pay for your lifestyle so that you can pay for your life on the Mediterranean and that you can pay for your exotic cars. So I guess what I would recommend is I would make sure that you're not ignoring the topic of taxes, tax optimization, especially if you're moving outside of the US. Taxes are going to be kind of an interesting thing there, but you are going to get a pension if you're active duty. Isn't your pension not taxed? So you might actually have some benefits there, if I'm not mistaken. So what I would recommend is I would look at your overall portfolio this way. And the way that I would look at it is I would look at how much money are you going to invest and how much money do you need? And then it just becomes a question of math, making the numbers and the percentages work for you. So let's say, for example, hypothetically, you have $1 million. If you have $1 million, and let's say you need $50,000 a year. $50,000 a year to pay for your exotic cars. That's probably not going to be enough, but that's just a guess. So if you need $50,000, and if you have $1 million invested, you need your overall portfolio to be yielding 5%. Whoa, it's rocket science, pun intended. It's not rocket science. So I'm getting a little bit out of control here, having too much energy. My caffeine must be finally kicking in after an hour. So that's how you look at it. If you know that you need $50,000 and you have $1 million to invest, you need a 5% yield, right? And then what you do is you look at your overall portfolio and you see, and this is why I love Snowball Analytics, you look at your overall portfolio. What is your overall portfolio yielding? Your portfolio is yielding 3%. So hypothetically, if you had $1 million in this portfolio, you'd be making about $32,000. That's not $50,000. So you're going to need to adjust more. You're going to need a higher yield, meaning you're probably going to need to reduce some or add less into Visa, less into Apple, less into Nike, and more into the Realty Incomes, the Chevrons, the VYMs, the SHDs, and maybe even a JEPQ, maybe. JEPQ is my favorite way to boost your income without taking on a lot of risk. But essentially, what I'm teaching you here and helping you understand, I'm going to call this teaching because that's what I'm doing here. You want to understand that you're looking at this, you want to start with your expenses. If your expenses are 30 grand, well, hey, you just need to grow your portfolio. You don't need to change anything. If your expenses are 60 grand, well, you need to either get a 6% yield or you need a little bit more than $1 million. It's all about making the numbers work. And then once you have the desired yield and income that you have, then what you want to do is you want to look at, well, how quickly is that yield growing? And the way that you do that is you're looking at how your portfolio, how the yield is growing. Now, what it doesn't do here in Snowball Analytics that I can see here is it doesn't give your portfolio dividend growth rate. It gives your portfolio yield, but it doesn't give your average portfolio dividend growth rate. And I'm gonna talk to the guys at Snowball Analytics and see if they can add that in here, because that is a really important metric. So you want to make sure that you're also factoring in on a weighted average basis, how quickly is that income going to grow? So that is how you do this. And it's building up a portfolio that you're comfortable with. I always recommend the core and satellite because that's the way that I did it and how it all clicked for me, but you got to find a way that works for you. But that's how you do it. You first start with your expenses. And then from there, you go and see, okay, well, how much am I going to be able to invest over this period of time? And what yield do I need so that it meets my goals? Because if you're a long-term subscriber to the channel, I always say, start with your goal. If you don't know your goal, it makes this very, very difficult. So once you have your goal, then you can work backwards from there. So Jason, thank you so much for sending over your portfolio. I hope this gives you a new way of thinking of how you can look at your dividend portfolio and look at this as it's kind of like a math equation. Make the numbers work for you. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching the video. I hope that the video was helpful. If you are interested in Snowball Analytics or Seeking Alpha, they do have their Black Friday sales going on until, I believe, December 5th. So if you want to support the channel and you want to sign up to them, you'll get a better price. You can use my link in the description below. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see everybody in next week's video.